Welcome to Attractions and Beyond, the podcast that talks about everything theme parks. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the rise of Paultons Park and how they are the best park in the UK currently as it stands. Now, a lot of UK parks in general are struggling a lot at the minute, but with Paultons Park, they're just not stopping. There's investment after investment. You know, they got Valgard opening this year, and before that even opened, they already announced the 2027 edition, which is going to be in the same area. Going to be really excited to see what these next few years is going to look for the park, especially for preparation of Universal Studios UK arriving in 2031. So Paultons Park is a theme park located in the New Forest National Park. But what really made this park what it is today is the opening of Peppa Pig World back in 2011. They have since then, after that, opened Critter Creek, the Lost Kingdom, and of course Tornado Springs. So back in the 17th of May 1983, the park did officially open as Paultons Park and the Bird Gardens. In 1986, they expanded with the railway station, station tea rooms, the Rio Grande. But the really big stuff started happening in 1992 when the runaway train coaster was installed, and it actually became the park's first major coaster to be put in. The early 2000s came along, and that's when we saw 3 new rides go in. We saw the pirate ship, the Viking boat, and the dragon ride, which did actually replace the Crazy Carts ride, which was located on that same area. Now, a ride that's actually still at the park and it's going to be incorporated with the Valgard-themed area. In 2006, we saw the installation of Cobra, the Gersteiler bobsled coaster, which I absolutely love this ride. I can't wait to see what they've done to make it fit with the Vikings-themed area. For a family coaster, it's absolutely brilliant. I went on it so many times when I went, and I always said with this ride and a lot of the earlier attractions at Paultons Park that there wasn't really much theming, but that's something that they actually do really well now, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what else they do with future expansion. But at the moment, with Tornado Springs, Valgard, and of course the Lost Kingdom when it really started, they have just come further and further and further with every investment that's been made. So between 2010 and 2019, this is when the park really got going, and I mean really got going. We saw the opening of their biggest success, which was Peppa Pig World in 2011. This area by far is still the most popular to date. I definitely know for a fact that out of all areas in the park, this is definitely the busiest. There is a lot of good attractions there, and it just looks pristine every time. You know, the family that actually own this park, you can tell they really care about presentation. You know, the hedges look amazing. The buildings look fantastic. Just everything looks brand new. Even though there are some older attractions there and just older infrastructure, it still looks fresh, and I really wish that's what other parks in the UK would do, like Alton Towers. Just take pride in the park. You know, that's the best thing about having a park, is just taking pride in what you do. So that's what I love about Paultons, and I think they definitely do it better than any other park in the country by far. We saw in 2012 a 25-metre drop tower known as Magma. Unfortunately, this is no longer at the park. It was taken out for the Valgard-themed area, but this was when they started to do a bit more theming. Of course, the ride, it's a family drop tower, and they did have like a bit of theming inside the actual station area, and it was like a volcano, basically. That looks quite good in the earlier days of theming, when they actually added a bit more themed aspect to the experience, and that was a good start with Magma. And in 2016, we had the Lost Kingdom, which when I went to Paultons Park, this was actually the area, the only really themed area that was there when I last visited. So it's been quite a while. Not seen Tornado Springs, of course. I'm going to be making a trip this year to see Valgard. But the Lost Kingdom is just so immersive. The audio's incredible. The theming. You wouldn't even think that this park, or this area in particular, is actually in the UK. You'd think it's abroad, somewhere in Europe, maybe America. But it's crazy what they do. They really think about every little bit around the area. And the 2 main coasters they've got, so Flight of the Pterosaur, which is a family inverted suspended coaster, and of course the family boomerang coaster known as Velociraptor, and I nearly said Velocicoaster. It's quite similar, isn't it? They're both fantastic rides, you know, they both offer a bit of a thrilling factor, but they are designed for families as well. What I love about Flight of the Pterosaur in particular, it's not very tall, not very fast, but I love how the ending, it has this big helix towards the end, and then you just end up in the station. No brake run or anything. It's so geniusly designed, and that's what I love about it. So it's a bit similar, a bit more of a modern take on Vampire at Chessington, obviously a different manufacturer. The restraints are much more comfortable. It's a smoother ride, of course. We know Vampire at Chessington is a bit more rougher because it is older. The layout on this is a bit different to some of the other ones, but it's still a good ride. Again, the colour scheme looks very good and they look after it. And I actually do know from looking on their socials that they did add a new dinosaur animatronic to the area this year. So I'm really excited to check that out. That's the thing with Paultons is they do build new stuff, they make new investments, but they also add new stuff to the existing areas. You know, they've added the animatronic. There's a great car ride in the area as well. There's just so much going on. I love it so much. I think what also makes Paultons Park as well is the fact that you don't have fast track. Parking's free. There's a lot of attractions, so you could go when it's really busy, but you can still get on loads because the queues don't really get that big, and there's just so many attractions, so it spreads people out around the park. And yes, some of the attractions may not be highest capacity, but then there's quite a few that are high capacity, so I think that's what they've really done well here. They thought, let's keep expanding. Then we got more than enough attractions for when the park does get busy, and, you know, the park doesn't suffer for it, and that's what Alton Towers in particular. I keep referencing Alton Towers because they're probably the worst park in the UK, as you saw from my last podcast, in terms of worst park in the UK to actually handle crowds. And for a capacity point of view, they don't really do that well these days as well. And I think that's what Paultons has really smashed in the bag, actually. And what I also love that they do is they do regular updates on their YouTube channel as well. I will actually link it down in the description so you can check it out. But their updates are fantastic. Every single one that they've been putting out of Valgard, I've been watching every single time there's been one released. It's just so good following a construction process, you know, following something from start to finish. I just absolutely love that about theme parks. So, you know, that's what made me a theme park fan in the first place. And just seeing new stuff, it's really exciting. And the fact that we're going to be stepping into that area next month, it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be one of the best investments, if not the best investment in the UK, and probably the best themed area. So in 2020, we, of course, did get the announcement that Tornado Springs will be opening, but unfortunately, we all know what happened that year. We did have COVID, so it did push it back to the following year in 2021, which was a shame, but eventually it did open, and it's been really successful. You know, Storm Chaser looks like a great coaster. The fact that they took the dinghy slides and rethemed them in with the area, named them Buffalo Falls. And then they added Farmyard Flyer as well, a little junior coaster in 2022, which was a nice little investment. And they really did start going towards the thrill market with this area in particular. Storm Chaser is quite a thrilling coaster anyway, even though it's more for families. But the ride that really did take them more into the thrill market was Cyclonator, which is a Zamperla. Now, Tornado Springs is themed to this American sort of area, if you like. You know, you got the road markings, you know, you got the traffic lights, you got the pylons, and you've got the Route 83 diner as well. And I have heard that is some of the best theme park food in the UK, and it was actually voted best UK theme park restaurant at the UK Theme Park Awards. I can't even remember what year it was, but it was voted the best. So that's another thing that they clearly do well at Paultons, is the actual catering. And in terms of pricing as well, I have heard isn't too bad, so I'd have to check that out next time I go. But Tornado Springs, another massive success. You know, these themed areas just keep getting better and better every year. And then in 2023, the 4D cinema was closed and it was transformed into a dark ride, the very first of its kind. It was a Mack Rides gameplay theatre known as Ghostly Manor, costing it $3.5 million, another great investment. And this is something else that Paultons really did lack, was dark rides. They really thought about that. They thought, what have we not actually got? We've not got a dark ride. So we'll add a first dark ride made by Mack Rides. And you know what? This is a really special ride. I'm saying it like I've done it. I've done the one at Europa Park, which is not quite as good, from what I've heard anyway. It's mainly screens. But the one at Paultons, from what I've seen pictures of videos, there was a lot more theming than screens. And what's really clever about this ride system is the capacity. You know, you have the seats that you actually sit in with the laser blasters, but then you have seats to the back of you, which are actually in the scenes. So you've got the scenes going on behind you with the people behind, but then you're loading, of course, on the other side. So it's really high capacity. And what they did with the queue line, with the actual ride system, and the whole facade, it looks absolutely fantastic. You know, they wanted a first dark ride. They wanted something different. They added Ghostly Manor. And it's added a bit more capacity, well, a lot more capacity. And I do hope in the future they do add a couple more dark rides, because at the moment they do lack dark rides. They've got the one now, but I would like to see a couple more in the future. We also had a small log flume ride added in 2024 to the Lost Kingdom. See how they keep expanding to their existing areas? We had Splash Lagoon. This is a mini log flume ride, and I love this. Again, the theming is fantastic. It's not the biggest ride, it is really small, but that doesn't matter when you theme something so well as Paultons do. And that does lead me on to say that, you know, you have Thorpe Park. you have Alton Towers. They have much bigger thrilling rides, which I love my thrill rides. A lot of people do. But then you have families as well, which like they're smaller rides, you know, and I think Paultons have hit the mark really well. You know, you got your smaller, more, you know, kiddie friendly rides like the ones in Peppa Pig World. Then you got your mid-range rides like Flight of the Pterosaur, you've got Velociraptor, but then you got your more intense thrill rides like Cyclinator, and of course one of the new coasters being added to Valgard, which I'll get onto in a minute. You got a good mix of Paultons, and that is something I really love about this park. 2026. Next month, we have the opening of the first Viking-themed area at this park, Valgard. This is going to be the best investment that they've ever made. And why is it going to be the best investment? Because the theming is even better. You know, they keep stepping it up. Lost Kingdom, amazing. Then they stepped it up with Tornado Springs, and now they're stepping it up even more with this area. I love Viking themes, and the fact that adding a coaster with the first inversion at Paultons is a massive milestone, and that is Drakon. This is a Gersala Eurofighter. And now when we did hear that this was going in, we thought, oh, Gersala, they're not that great. You know, they don't age the best, but the thing is, you've got to look after these rides properly for them to actually age well, and I think that's something that they just don't do with the Smiler and Soar the Ride, and that's why they're quite rough now. Whereas if they look after this properly, it will age well. The colour looks amazing. The fact that they threw this up in the space of time that they did is impressive. And of course, it has got over-the-shoulder restraints, and a lot of rides are now reliant on just lap bar only. But with this being the first coaster at Paultons Park to do an inversion, go upside down, then it's understandable that they have added over-the-shoulder restraints. It'll just give the general public a bit more reassurance rather than us enthusiasts, you know, who just want lap bars. I would love lap bars. It'd be much a better experience, but I think this coaster's going to be fantastic nevertheless. It's going to be great. Then, of course, we've got the re-theme of Cobra into Raven. It's just themed. So that's what I'm talking about mainly in this video, is the theming, because that's what they're doing. They're transforming rides which didn't really have much before, but then they're just adding more to it. It's great. Then, of course, we've got the first wild swing as well, called Wild Swing. This looks really unique. You know, they're popping up everywhere around the world. There's like loads popping up in Europe. It's basically like a family version of a top spin. That's the best way to put it. But I can see you actually getting quite a bit of airtime on these. And the fact they've added onboard audio, the actual sign looks amazing for the entrance. The theme looks great. I think there's going to be a good soundtrack around the area as well. I think that what really makes these themed areas is when they add different soundtracks. We've got one main restaurant known as the Feasting Hall as well. Now, I have seen pictures of the food, and the food looks great, and the actual dining experience, it just takes it to the next level. You know, you've got a massive Viking longship in the middle of the restaurant. You can actually sit in it. How crazy is that? I mean, they just think about every little detail, and that's something that Paultons just does not stop at. And of course, when we actually saw the announcement for Valgard last year, around the time when Ghostly Manor opened, we did see that they were adding a 2027 addition to the area, which I do think is going to be a water ride. They actually did a little April Fools where they actually had this little flat ride in the middle of some water, which, of course, that was just an April Fool. That's not happening. But I think this could be a really good water ride. I don't think it'll be like Valhalla at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, because, of course, I only reference that because that's Viking themed as well. But I think it's going to be a great ride nonetheless. And I think it is going to be themed really well too. So, of course, Paultons Park, they just keep growing and growing and growing. And, you know, this video is mainly to cover what are the next 5 years going to be like for the park. It's realistically, what is it going to be like, and what are my thoughts on what it could be like? Because, you know, these parks do need to step up their game for preparations of Universal Studios. And I think, you know, Paultons have done that well already, whereas a lot of other parks haven't. Some of them are so far behind, but with Paultons, they're just miles ahead of the game, and, you know, they're in a good position. But I think the next 5 years, they are going to have some sort of hotel. I do think there was a planning application that went in last year, I think March last year at some point. So I do think there is going to be a hotel to make it a bit more like a resort. It's already got kind of a resort feel, but, you know, maybe a hotel, maybe some other activities outside of the theme park itself to make it feel a bit more like a resort rather than just the theme park. So you have your hotel, maybe at some point in the future, another bit of accommodation as well. So maybe like a more cheaper accommodation and then maybe a more premium accommodation. So it just gives people that option on where they would like to stay when they visit the park. But also adding a water park would be a great idea as well, because a lot of resorts do have water parks, and I think Paultons could do a really good job. Maybe they could have different parts of the water park, maybe themed to the different areas in the park itself. You could have I don't know, like a Viking themed bit of the water park. There's just so many things you could do. Or they could do something new as well. I do think it'll be more family friendly in terms of the water park, so it won't have the most thrilling slides, but it'll have a good variety. And I think, that's what they'll do really well if they do a water park. They could have a massive indoor area, but then they could have a big outdoor area. So I wouldn't really like to say, they could do something like Rulantica at Europa Park, because, we all know that the parks in Europe do a much better job than the ones in the UK. But, they could kind of go towards that level, maybe not as big. Have some nice relaxation areas. I like a pool bar. The pool bar is also, something that they may or may not do if they did do a water park, because it is more of an adults thing. Obviously, Paultons is more for families. But there's so many good things that they could do. They could have raft slides, your normal body slides. They could have maybe a lazy river. But I do think a water park and multiple sets of accommodation would really give it more of that resort aspect. Maybe some mini golf, a bit like what Alton Towers has got. Maybe a little woodland trail. There's so many activities that you could do to make it a resort. I don't really know if you necessarily need some sort of transport, so Skyride or monorail. I don't think the actual area itself is big enough for that. Unless they expand and make it a bit more bigger, then I don't think transport's really something. I mean, they could have buses. That would be an option because, Universal, Disney do that really well. So something along those lines, because I do think that this park in particular would really benefit from being a full resort, if you like. And to compete with Universal, it is going to need to be a bit more resort. It could be a park, but making it a bit more of a resort just to give people that option to obviously stay there as well. Because you think the amount of people that are going to be coming from Europe, from different parts of the world, really, to Universal Studios Great Britain. They might think, let's go to Paultons Park. It's not far, but let's spend a night there, It's such a good idea. And I do think it'd really benefit them. I really do. Now, I think a lot of parks, and we did actually touch on this in the last episode when we talked about Alton Towers, that a lot of parks are focusing on IP-based attractions. Alton Towers are potentially going to do it. Chessington is doing it with Minecraft and the World of Paw Patrol. But let's just hope that Paultons doesn't go down that route. I don't think they will, because it is a family business. They just want to create their original themes. But I do think IPs is just not the way forward. Leave Universal to do the IPs because they do them really well. But I just don't think these independent parks, or even Merlin, really should be doing IPs. If it was anybody, it was going to be Merlin. But these independent parks just stick with what you do well, because the original themes at Paultons, Tornado Springs, Lost Kingdom, Valgard, they're brilliant, and whoever came up with the ideas is fantastic, and the actual promotion they do for them as well, it really works. And it's also good timing as well, because Paultons put this out on Facebook that you can now upgrade your 2026 premium membership. So monthly billing, digital passes on your phone, unlimited visits any day that they're open, discounts in the retail and food and beverage units. There's no need to pre-book when you visit. They've just put this out today, which is really good. Unfortunately, I would get one of these myself, but I don't live local to the park. But I tell you what, if I lived close, I'd definitely invest in one of these. It's definitely worth the money. The fact that you don't have to pre-book as well is obviously brilliant. That's the one thing that actually did my head in about the Merlin parks, is just having to pre-book, and Pleasure Beach as well, which is my local. The fact that you don't have to with this is absolutely great. I do love that they do think about the guest experience. That's something that they do really well. You just got to think about it. The guest experience is so important, and that's what keeps people coming back. You have a good experience, you're willing to come back. If you don't have a good experience, you're probably not going to come back. So Paultons know what they're doing. They like to get the visitors in and get them coming back, and that's what it's all about. You're going to make more money doing it like that than somebody having not so good of a day and them not returning. So I definitely think that they are thinking about every little thing when it comes to the guest experience. So in 5 years' time, who knows where Paultons is going to be? I know a lot of parks in this country may not be in a good position then. Some of them, unfortunately, might close down, because we did see quite a few closures of parks around the UK in the last few years. Paultons are just unstoppable at the minute. Investment after investment after investment after investment, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. They're just going to keep expanding. ready for that opening date of Universal Studios Great Britain in 2031. But what are your thoughts? How do you think Paultons are going to progress for the next 5 years? Are you looking forward to Valgard, the new themed area that's opening next month? Please leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this episode of Paultons Park on the Rise, don't forget to leave a like and feel free to subscribe to keep up to date with everything going on in the theme park industry. Thanks for watching this Attractions and Beyond podcast, and we'll see you next time.